A frightened woman whispered nervously, "He just walked in." Hearing this, the nearby bikers immediately jumped into action, and what they did next changed everything. Sarah's hand trembled as she clutched her phone behind the counter. The man who'd made her life a nightmare for 6 months had just pushed through the glass doors of the diner. Her ex-boyfriend Marcus stood in the entryway, scanning the room with cold eyes. She'd moved 3 towns over to escape him, changed her number twice, filed restraining orders that he ignored like junk mail. The breakfast crowd barely noticed him. Families ate pancakes, construction workers drank coffee, and at the corner booth sat 5 bikers from the motorcycle club that met here every Tuesday morning. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to The Goodness Effect. Sarah had served these men their eggs and coffee for 2 months. They were regulars, quiet mostly, except when they laughed at each other's jokes. They left good tips and never caused trouble. The biggest one, everyone called him Bear, had a grey beard down to his chest. He'd always ask about her day. Marcus walked toward the counter, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't run. The kitchen was through a door behind her. But he'd catch her before she made it. The phone felt useless in her shaking hand. Last time she'd called police, they'd arrived 20 minutes after he'd already smashed her car windows and left. "Hey Sarah," Marcus's voice carried across the diner. Several customers looked up now. "We need to talk." She took 1 step back. Her heel hit the cabinet behind her. Nowhere left to go. That's when she saw Bear's head turn. He'd been reading something on his phone, but now his eyes moved from Marcus to Sarah. The other bikers noticed too. The one with the scar across his eyebrow. The woman with red hair in 2 long braids. The young guy who couldn't be older than 25. The thin one with tattoos covering both arms. Marcus took another step forward. "Don't ignore me. I drove 2 hours to find you." Sarah's whisper was barely audible, but Bear heard it. He just walked in. Chapter 1. The Approach. Marcus moved closer to the counter with deliberate steps. He wore the same leather jacket he'd worn the night Sarah had finally packed her bags. The night he'd punched a hole in her apartment wall because she'd come home 10 minutes late from work. The night she'd realized staying would eventually kill her. "You can't just leave without explanation," Marcus said, his voice calm but his jaw tight. 6 months, Sarah. You blocked me everywhere." The other customers were watching now. The morning atmosphere had shifted into something tense and uncomfortable. A mother pulled her young daughter closer in their booth. An elderly man folded his newspaper slowly, his eyes moving between Marcus and Sarah. Bear stood up from the corner booth. He didn't rush, didn't make a scene, just rose to his full height, which was considerable. The man had to be 6'5", with shoulders that necessitated he'd spent decades doing physical work. His leather vest showed patches from his motorcycle club. The Guardians, they called themselves. "Morning," Bear said to Marcus, his voice friendly enough. "You lost friend?" Marcus glanced at him, irritation flashing across his face. "This doesn't concern you. I'm talking to my girlfriend." "Ex-girlfriend," Sarah found her voice, though it shook. "We broke up 6 months ago." "We never officially broke up. You just ran away like a coward." Marcus's hands curled into fists on the counter. Sarah knew those hands, knew what they could do. The red-haired biker woman was standing now too, so was the young one. They hadn't said anything, just positioned themselves where they could move quickly if needed. Bear took a few steps closer, his boots heavy on the diner floor. "Seems like the lady wants you to leave. Seems like you should mind your own business." Marcus turned fully toward Bear now, puffing up his chest. He was a big man himself, maybe 6'2", muscular from the gym he practically lived at. "I'm not here to cause problems. Just need to talk to Sarah. She doesn't want to talk." This came from the biker with the scarred eyebrow. His voice was quieter than Bear's but somehow more dangerous. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What is this? You her new boyfriend or something?" He looked at Sarah with disgust. "That why you left? Shacking up with biker trash?" Sarah shook her head. "I left because you hurt me. Because I was afraid you'd do worse." The words hung in the air. Several customers shifted uncomfortably. The mother with the daughter stood and guided her child toward the exit quickly. Marcus's face darkened. "I never hurt you. You're dramatic. You're always making things bigger than they are." "Show them your arm," Bear said to Sarah, his eyes never leaving Marcus. "The bruises healed yet?" Sarah's hand instinctively went to her upper arm, where Marcus had grabbed her so hard during their last fight that his fingerprints had stayed purple for 2 weeks. How did Bear know about that? Chapter 2. Old wounds. I've been watching you flinch every time someone moves too fast, Bear said to Sarah, his voice gentler now. I've watched you check the door every 5 minutes, like you're expecting something bad. I've been a waitress's regular long enough to know the difference between normal tired and scared tired. Sarah felt tears threatening, but pushed them down. She wouldn't cry in front of Marcus. Wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Marcus slammed his palm on the counter, making several customers jump. This is ridiculous. Sarah, get your stuff. We're leaving. She's not going anywhere with you. The tattooed biker had moved to block the space between Marcus and the counter. Up close, Sarah could see his ink wasn't random. Military symbols covered his forearms. A memorial piece with dates and names ran up his left arm. You think I'm scared of you people? Marcus's voice rose. I'll call the cops. You're harassing me. Go ahead. Bear pulled out his phone and held it toward Marcus. Call them. Tell them you drove 2 hours to confront your ex-girlfriend who has a restraining order against you. Tell them you're refusing to leave when multiple witnesses say she's afraid of you. Marcus's eyes narrowed. How do you know about the restraining order? Sarah mentioned it a few weeks back. Said she had an ex who wouldn't take no for an answer. Didn't take much to put things together when you walked in here, and she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The young biker spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly deep. My mom had a guy like you. Followed her to 3 different cities. Wouldn't let her live her life. He paused. Eventually enough people stood up and he got the message. This is none of your concern, Marcus repeated, but some of the confidence had leaked from his voice. He was outnumbered, and he knew it. 5 bikers, all watching him, plus several other customers who were clearly on Sarah's side now. The diner owner, a heavyset man named Tom, emerged from the kitchen. He'd been cooking but must have heard the commotion. There a problem out here? No problem, Bear said calmly. This gentleman was just leaving. I'm not going anywhere until Sarah and I talk. Alone. Tom crossed his arms. Sarah, you want to talk to this man? She shook her head firmly. Then you need to leave, Tom said to Marcus. This is private property. You're making my employee and customers uncomfortable. Marcus's face went red. You're all going to regret this. Every single one of you. He pointed at Sarah. This isn't over. You can't hide behind these people forever. Actually, the red-haired biker woman spoke up, her voice carrying a hint of an accent. Sarah couldn't place. She can. That's exactly what community does. We look out for each other. Marcus stared at her, then at each of the bikers in turn. His fists clenched and unclenched. Sarah knew that look. He was calculating, trying to decide if he could take them. His pride warred with his common sense. You're all making a huge mistake, he finally said. Sarah, you're throwing away what we had for these strangers. What we had was me being terrified every day, Sarah said, her voice stronger now. What we had was me walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing or look at you the wrong way. That's not love, that's prison. The words seemed to hit Marcus harder than any physical blow could have. His face contorted with rage, and something else, something that might have been pain if Sarah didn't know better. Chapter 3. The Stack. Marcus took a step back, but he didn't leave. His eyes scanned the room, looking for any weakness, any opening. Sarah had seen this before. He was planning something. I'm calling my lawyer, Marcus said, pulling out his phone. False imprisonment. Harassment. Discrimination. You people have no idea what you've just started. Document everything. The scarred biker said to Tom. Security footage, timestamps, all of it. When his lawyer talks to our lawyer, we'll show them a man violating a restraining order and terrorizing his ex. Marcus froze. You have a lawyer? We're a registered motorcycle club. We run charity rides, organize community events, help veterans get back on their feet. Yeah, we have lawyers. Good ones. Bear's expression hadn't changed, still calm, still steady. What we don't have is patience for men who hurt women. The tattooed biker added. I was military police for 8 years. I know every law about restraining orders, harassment, and stalking. Want to compare notes? Sarah watched Marcus's confidence crumble bit by bit. He'd expected her to be alone and vulnerable. Expected to intimidate her back into his life like he'd done before with phone calls and showing up at her old job. He hadn't expected resistance. Certainly not organized, informed resistance. Sarah, Marcus tried one more time, his voice shifting to the tone he used when he wanted something. Soft, pleading. Baby, please. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Just you and me. She'd fallen for that tone so many times before. The apologies that came after the anger, the promises that things would be different. The flowers and gifts that followed his worst moments. The cycle had repeated for 2 years before she'd found the strength to break it. "No," Sarah said simply. "I have nothing to say to you. You owe me an explanation." "I owe you nothing." The red-haired biker smiled at that. "There you go." Marcus's pleading expression vanished, replaced by the cold anger Sarah knew better. "You're going to regret this. When these people aren't around, when you're alone again, you're going to wish you'd been smart about this." "Is that a threat?" The young biker pulled out his phone and started recording. "Because that sounded like a threat. Say it again for the camera." Marcus looked at the phone, then at the bikers, then at the other customers who were also pulling out phones now. In the age of smartphones, his intimidation tactics had witnesses everywhere. "I'm leaving," Marcus announced, backing toward the door. "But this conversation isn't finished." "Yeah, it is." Bear followed him at a distance, not threatening, just making sure he actually left. The other bikers did the same, creating a wall of leather and denim between Marcus and Sarah. Marcus pushed through the glass door hard enough to make it shudder in its frame. Through the window, Sarah watched him stride across the parking lot to his car. A black sedan she'd ridden in hundreds of times, back when she thought his possessiveness meant he cared. He sat in the driver's seat, but didn't start the engine. Just stared at the diner. "He's going to wait out there," Sarah said quietly. "He'll follow me home when my shift ends." Bear nodded. "Probably. But you're not going home alone." He looked at the other bikers. "Thoughts?" "Escort," the tattooed one said immediately. "We follow her home, make sure she gets inside safe. He sees we're serious, maybe he backs off." "And if he doesn't back off?" the young biker asked. "Then we escalate," the red-haired woman said. "Document everything. Build a case that forces real consequences." Sarah felt overwhelmed. These people barely knew her. She'd served them coffee and eggs, chatted about weather and local news. Nothing deep. Nothing that should inspire this kind of protection. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Bear turned to look at her fully. "Because it's the right thing to do, because nobody should live in fear. And because all of us in this room have our own stories. Our own reasons." Chapter 4, Stories Shared. The breakfast rush had ended. Most customers had left, though a few lingered at their tables, still watching Marcus's car in the parking lot. Tom brought out fresh coffee for everyone and waved off Sarah's attempt to get back to work. "Take a break," he said. "You're rattled." Understandable. The bikers settled back into their corner booth, but they positioned themselves where they could still see the door and the parking lot. Sarah found herself sitting with them, coffee cup warming her still shaking hands. "I'm Bear," the big man said formally, as if they were meeting for the first time. "This is Chain." He nodded to the tattooed biker. "That's Ruby, the red-haired woman. The kid is Danny," the young one nodded, "and the ugly one is Scar." "My name's actually Mike," Scar said, running a finger along the line that cut through his eyebrow. "But nobody calls me that anymore." Sarah managed a small smile. "I'm Sarah." "We know." Ruby's voice was kind. "You're a good waitress, patient with the difficult customers. You remember everyone's orders. And you're always here." Danny added. 6 days a week. Morning shifts mostly. You work too much." Sarah blinked. She hadn't realized they'd paid such close attention. "I need the money. I'm trying to save up to move again. Somewhere farther away." "That's not a solution," Chain said, his voice matter of fact. "Running only works until he finds you again. And guys like that always find you. You sound like you know from experience." Chain nodded slowly. "My sister. Different guy, same pattern. She moved 4 times. He tracked her down every time. Finally, she had to get serious about protecting herself. Learned self-defense. That pepper spray and a security system. Built a network of people who watched out for her. Did it work? Eventually, took time, but he realized she wasn't an easy target anymore. Found someone else to harass. Which is its own kind of sad. But at least my sister got her life back." Ruby leaned forward. "It was Sarah," she said quietly. 15 years ago. Different town, different man, same fear. I slept with a knife under my pillow for a year. Knifed at every sound, checked over my shoulder constantly." "What changed?" Sarah asked. "I got angry, tired of being scared, joined a self-defense class that was really a support group in disguise. Met women who'd been through the same thing. Started riding with the Guardians a few years later, found out there's strength in numbers." Bear added. Every person at this table has a connection to this kind of situation. Danny's mom, Chain's sister, Ruby herself. Scar's ex-wife went through it with her boyfriend before she met him. And me, he paused, his eyes distant. My daughter. She didn't make it out. The table went quiet. Sarah felt her chest tighten. She was 19, Bear continued, his voice steady but sad. Beautiful kid, smart, wanted to be a teacher. She dated a guy her sophomore year of college. He seemed nice at first, they always do. By the time we realized what was happening, he'd isolated her from us, convinced her we didn't understand their relationship. One night, they argued. He pushed her down a flight of stairs, claimed it was an accident. Bear's massive hands wrapped around his coffee cup. Maybe it was, doesn't matter, she hit her head wrong. Gone before the ambulance arrived. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered. That was 8 years ago, started the Guardians 2 years later. We're not vigilantes, we don't hurt people. But we stand between the scared and the scary whenever we can. We show up, we witness. We make it harder for bullies to win. Sarah understood now. This wasn't random kindness. This was purpose. This was people who'd been broken by violence, trying to prevent others from shattering the same way. Marcus's car was still in the parking lot. He'd moved it closer to Sarah's beat-up Honda, positioning himself. He's not going to give up easily, Sarah said. Probably not, Scar agreed. But he's going to learn he can't do this alone anymore. You've got people now. Chapter 5, The Plan. Tom joined them at the booth, carrying a notepad. Okay, let's be practical. Sarah, what time does your shift end? 4 o'clock. We'll have people here, Bear said immediately. You don't leave alone. We escort you home. Check your apartment. Make sure everything's secure. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. We're offering. Ruby pulled out her phone. What's your address? We'll map the route. Figure out the best way to handle this. Sarah hesitated, but gave them the information. What choice did she have? Marcus wasn't going to disappear just because she wanted him to. Chain tapped the table thoughtfully. Restraining order, you said. How long is it active? 2 years. But he's violated it 3 times now. Police don't seem to care much. They say unless he actually hurts me, there's not much they can do. That's about to change, Chain said. We're going to document everything. Every time he shows up, every threat, every violation. Build a case, so airtight, they can't ignore it. There's a cop in the club, Danny added. Well, former cop, retired last year. He might have advice on who to talk to, how to push this through the system. Bear nodded. Good thinking. Tom, what about your security cameras? They cover the parking lot? Some of it, not all angles, but I've got footage of him coming in, the confrontation, him waiting in his car now. I'll make copies. Perfect. We'll need that. Bear looked at Sarah. What about your apartment? Security. It's just a regular lock. No camera or anything. We'll fix that. Ruby's got connections with a security company. We can get you a camera for your door, maybe one for your parking spot if your landlord allows it. Ruby was already texting someone. On it. Sarah felt tears building again. But this time, they weren't from fear. She'd been alone for so long, facing this nightmare by herself. The police had been useless. Her family lived 3 states away, and didn't understand why she couldn't just talk things out with Marcus. Friends had drifted away during the relationship, driven off by Marcus's jealousy and her increasing isolation. These strangers were doing more to help her than anyone had in years. I don't know how to thank you, she managed. Don't thank us yet, Scar said, but he was smiling. Wait until we actually pull this off. The diner door opened. Everyone tensed, hands moving to phones, bodies shifting to be ready. But it was just an elderly couple, regulars, who came in for lunch every day. Sarah forced herself to breathe normally. This was going to be her life now. Jumping at every door, every unexpected sound. Unless they could actually stop Marcus. What if he gets violent? She asked, quietly. What if showing up with you all just makes him angrier? Might, Bear admitted. But here's the thing about bullies. They rely on their victims being isolated and afraid. They don't like audiences. They don't like witnesses. They especially don't like resistance. Sometimes just showing them they can't control the situation anymore is enough to make them move on. And if it's not enough, then we adjust. This isn't a one-time thing, Sarah. We're in this with you until it's resolved, however long that takes. Chain added. I've seen this play out dozens of times in my sister's case and in the cases of other women I've helped. Documentation is key. Every interaction, every threat, every time he shows up where he shouldn't be. We create a pattern that's undeniable. Eventually the system has to respond. What about my job? Sarah looked at Tom. I can't ask you to deal with this. If Marcus keeps coming here, then we'll handle it, Tom interrupted. You think you're the first waitress I've had dealing with a nightmare ex? I've worked in diners for 30 years. I've seen it all. You're a good employee. You show up on time. You work hard. Customers like you. I'm not losing you because some jackass can't let go. Marcus was still in his car. Occasionally he looked at his phone, but mostly he just watched the diner. He's waiting for me to leave through the back, Sarah said. That's what I'd usually do. Take the trash out back by my car. Avoid walking through the parking lot. Not today, Bear said. Today you leave through the front door. With all of us. We make it clear you're not alone. What if he follows us? He probably will. We'll be ready for that too. Chapter 6. The first test. The rest of Sarah's shift crawled by. Every time the door opened, her stomach clenched. But Marcus stayed in his car, just watching. Other customers came and went. Lunch rush happened. Sarah moved mechanically through her duties, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks. Her mind was elsewhere. The bikers stayed. They nursed coffees and ordered food they didn't seem particularly hungry for. They took shifts watching the parking lot. When one left to use the restroom or take a phone call, they positioned themselves where they could see Marcus's car. At 3:30, more motorcycles pulled into the parking lot. Sarah counted 6 additional bikes, more members of the Guardians. Bear made introductions. There was Torch, a woman with grey streaks in her black hair. Reaper, a man who had to be in his 70s but looked tough as steel. Axel and his wife Maria, who rode matching bikes. A quiet man everyone called Ghost, and a younger woman named Cricket, who couldn't have been much older than Sarah. Word got around. Torch explained. We take care of our own, and you're one of ours now. Whether you knew it or not. Sarah didn't know what to say. 11 bikers were now in the diner, all because of her. Marcus had noticed the additional motorcycles. Through the window, Sarah saw him on his phone, probably calling someone. Maybe for backup of his own. Maybe just venting his frustration. At 4 o'clock exactly, Sarah clocked out. Her hands shook as she tied up the apron strings and hung it in the back room. This was it. Time to face Marcus with her new allies. Tom appeared with an envelope. Your tips from the week. And a little extra. Consider it hazard pay. Tom, I can't. You can. And you will. Now go. They're waiting for you. The bikers had assembled near the door. They weren't trying to look intimidating, but 11 people in leather vests and boots created an undeniable presence. Other customers watched with curiosity and concern. Ready? Bear asked Sarah. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked out together, Sarah in the middle, surrounded by bikers on all sides. A protective formation that felt both comforting and surreal. Marcus got out of his car immediately. He'd been waiting for this moment. Really, Sarah? He called across the parking lot. You need a whole gang to protect you from me. That's pathetic. That's safe, Ruby called back. There's a difference. Marcus approached but stopped when the bikers shifted positions, keeping Sarah shielded. He couldn't get to her without going through them. This is harassment, Marcus said. I'm going to call the police right now. Report all of you. Go ahead, Shane said, holding up his phone which was recording everything. Several of us are already recording. Let's get the cops here. Show them the restraining order violation. Show them you following your ex-girlfriend to her workplace. Marcus's jaw clenched. I have a right to eat at any restaurant I want. You haven't eaten anything, Scar pointed out. You've been sitting in your car for 7 hours. That's not dining. That's stalking. Sarah walked toward her Honda, the bikers moving with her. It felt strange, this protective bubble. She'd been alone for so long. Marcus followed at a distance, but he didn't try to get closer. Not with so many witnesses, not with phones recording. Sarah reached her car. Her hands fumbled with her keys. Bear gently took them from her, unlocked the door, and checked the back seat before handing the keys back. Straight to your apartment, he said quietly. Don't stop anywhere. We'll be right behind you. All of you. All of us. The bikers mounted their motorcycles. The engines roared to life, a thunderous sound that seemed to shake the air. Sarah got into her Honda, started the engine with trembling hands. Marcus stood next to his sedan, watching. His face was red with barely contained rage. Sarah pulled out of the parking lot. In her rearview mirror, she saw the line of motorcycles following her, and behind them, Marcus's black sedan. The convoy moved through town. Sarah kept checking her mirrors, counting bikes, making sure Marcus kept his distance. He stayed back, probably aware that 11 witnesses made any aggressive move impossible. Her apartment complex was 20 minutes away. The longest 20 minutes of Sarah's life. Every stoplight felt like an eternity. Every turn made her fear she'd lose her escort somehow. But they stayed with her. All the way to her building. The motorcycles parked in a row in the visitor spots. Sarah pulled into her assigned space. Marcus drove past slowly, glaring. But he didn't. Chapter 7. A New Beginning. Sarah's apartment was on the second floor. The bikers cleared the stairwell first, then waited while she unlocked her door. Bear checked inside, opening closets and looking under the bed, making sure nobody had broken in during her shift. All clear, he announced. Looks good. The apartment was small. A studio with a kitchenette and a bathroom that barely fit a shower. Sarah had furnished it with second-hand items and yard sale finds. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Her safe space. Ruby examined the door lock. This wouldn't stop a determined person. We'll get you a deadbolt. And a chain. Tomorrow, Chain added. I'll install it myself. Cricket was looking out the window that faced the parking lot. He just drove past again. Third time. He's checking which apartment is hers, Torch said grimly, trying to figure out her windows. Sarah felt the fear creeping back. These people couldn't stay here forever. Eventually she'd be alone again. And Marcus was persistent. He'd wait them out. As if reading her thoughts, Bear said, we'll set up a schedule. Different people checking in at different times. Random patterns, so he can't predict when you'll be alone or protected. We'll allow it too complicated for him to plan anything. That's asking too much, Sarah protested. You all have lives, jobs, families. And you're part of that family now. Maria spoke for the first time, her voice carrying a slight Spanish accent. This is what we do. This is why the Guardians exists. Axel nodded. My Maria. Before we married, she had a similar situation. Different man, same fear. The club helped her. Helped us. Now we help others. It's how it is. Sarah sank onto her second-hand couch. The weight of the day crashed over her. The fear, the adrenaline, the unexpected support. It was overwhelming. I don't understand why you care, she said quietly. I'm nobody. You're not nobody. Danny sat on the floor near her couch, his young face serious. My mom used to say that. When her ex was terrorizing her, she felt like a burden when people helped. Like she didn't deserve protection. But here's the thing. Everyone deserves to feel safe. Everyone deserves to live without fear. That's not a privilege, it's a right. Ruby sat on the couch next to Sarah. When I was going through my situation, I had nobody. I wished every day that someone would just show up and help, just see me and care. Now I'm someone who can show up, so I do. They handed Sarah a piece of paper with phone numbers written on it. All of us. You call any time, day or night. You see Marcus, you hear something weird, you just feel scared. The answer. Sarah looked at the list. 11 numbers. 11 people who'd committed to helping a woman they barely knew. What happens now, she asked. Now we document and wait, Chain said. We've got footage from today. We'll get statements from witnesses at the diner. Every time Marcus shows up anywhere near you, we record it. We build evidence until the police and courts can't ignore it. And if he tries something violent, then we respond appropriately, Scar said. We're not looking for a fight, but we're prepared for one if necessary. Most importantly, you're never alone when he might try something. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. It's him, she said, showing the phone to Bear. The message read, those bikers can't protect you forever. Eventually you'll be alone. I'm patient. Chain photographed the message with his phone. More evidence. Let him keep texting. Every threat makes the case stronger. Another text came through. You're making this worse than it needs to be. Just talk to me. 5 minutes. That's all I want. Don't respond, Ruby advised. Nothing you say will help. Silence and distance. That's the strategy. The texts kept coming. 10 in the next 15 minutes. Starting pleading, turning accusatory, then threatening again. Marcus was spiraling. This is good, Chain said, documenting each message. He's losing control. making mistakes, showing his true nature in writing. Torch was back at the window. He's parked across the street now. Just sitting in his car. Call the police, Bear said to Sarah. Report the restraining order violation. The harassment. Show them the texts. Sarah made the call with shaking hands. The operator took her information, said officers would be dispatched. It took 40 minutes for a patrol car to arrive. By then Marcus had driven away. The officers took Sarah's statement, looked at the texts, seemed sympathetic but not particularly concerned. Unless he actually does something, one officer said, our hands are tied. Best we can do is document this in case something happens later. Something like what? Ruby asked sharply. Her getting hurt, killed, that's what it takes for you to act. I understand your frustration, ma'am, but no, you don't understand, Bear interrupted, his voice calm but firm. This is how women end up dead. Everyone sees the warning signs. Nobody does anything until it's too late. The officers left without making any promises. Sarah felt defeated. That's why we build the case, Chain reminded her. We go above their heads if we have to. Make it political. Make it public. Make it impossible to ignore. The bikers didn't leave until after midnight. They took shifts watching Sarah's apartment from the parking lot, made sure Marcus didn't come back. Finally, Bear knocked on her door one last time. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow, we install better locks. Set up cameras, make this place a fortress. You're not alone anymore, Sarah, remember that. After they left, Sarah lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 6 months, she didn't feel completely terrified. The fear was still there, Marcus was still out there, but he had allies now. People who saw her, believed her, stood with her. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Marcus. This isn't over. Sarah looked at the list of numbers Bear had given her. 11 people who'd promised to answer. She texted back to Marcus for the first time. You're right, it's not over, but I'm not alone anymore, and that changes everything. She blocked his number after sending it. Then she called Ruby, who answered on the first ring. Can't sleep? Ruby asked. Not yet, but I wanted to say thank you, really thank you. Get some rest, sister. Tomorrow, we start fighting back properly, and this time, you're going to win. Sarah hung up and closed her eyes. Outside, she heard a motorcycle engine. Someone was still watching, still protecting. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Sarah felt something other than fear. She felt hope. And more than that, she felt the beginning of something she'd lost along the way. She felt vague. Marcus had been right about one thing. This wasn't over, but he'd miscalculated badly, because Sarah wasn't the isolated, frightened woman he'd terrorized for years. Not anymore. She had warriors standing beside her now, and together they would make sure Marcus learned that some women couldn't be broken. Some women fought back, and some women had angels on motorcycles, who showed up exactly when they were needed most. The Guardians had lived up to their name, and Sarah's life would never be the same. Retry.